All right, so one more video and I'll let you guys go. So why I want to bring this parse back up for one more level, this is something I think is going to be more broadly applicable, is we can look at things like our dispels, our ability to debuff and buff. This can let me know, for example, am I actually keeping up the appropriate buff that's going to help all the melee in my group? And if so, for how long? And of course, can I do that with all the other hunters? Can I go on to see how long they're doing it, how consistently they're doing it? And the answer is yes. For something like the dispels, for example, I'll often go on to see who's going on to dispel on specific bosses quickly. So let me say I want to go to Chromag because I know for, again, my hunters, we need to dispel Frenzy and we need to do it consistently. And of course, I end up seeing other data as well, like Nova Crane over here going on to dispel a lot of the green afflictions. Of course, who else is doing that and how? Again, for these other afflictions, who's missing. But over here, I can see who is it that dispels the frenzies? How often is that happening? And these numbers could be totally flip-flopped. I could be at number 1 next week or last week or whatever it be. But of course, if there's a trend week after week, this means that there's room for conversations, or at the very least, self-introspection. Why is it on some fights I keep missing dispels and Seijo and Adeline are so good at it? That allows me, again, room for growth. How do I go on to make it so we are less likely to wipe? And something that is expected of all of our raiders is to have that level of, asking yourself what's going on and why and when. Likewise, for the hunters, for Firemaw, sorry, not Firemaw, for Ebonrock, no, I'm a liar. Flame Gore, we again have these friends that have to be dispelled. For us, since we rotate, these numbers should all be, basically on par. But in the nights where we've ended up having someone who's clearly not, giving their trank shot when they're supposed to, this is where I can tell. This is where I can say, hey, you're not doing your thing. Likewise, when we go on down here to Nefarian, we can go on to see who is, for example, taking care of Veil of Shadow, which is going on to cause issues for our tank. Who is dispelling? And we can easily see that, okay, we have a couple people who are on it, which also means that there's probably some people who aren't on it, unless these are the people that we specify to, okay, that's basically your job. Likewise, if we're looking for who is going on to polymorph, who is dispelling the polymorphs. Obviously, Prophecy over here is going on to have their dispels, consistently for Nefarian. We can go on to look at who is casting heals on Nefarian that are leaving dots. This is where we have that level of granularity, is by looking at all these details for a specific fight. And that leads us to go on to ask, what are you doing, and how is that working for you and why? When we go on to look at, for example, this wild polymorph that's going on, these are our mages who are going on to cast lots of polymorphs on the raid. And who is it being cast on? So you can see that some of our mages got hit by the polymorph, and they were polymorphed for a while because no one wants to go near those darn mages during that time. And, here we have a mage who is cast, unfortunately was dispelled relatively quickly, but then we see all of these other people that was cast on, and we can see who is it that's casting on them during that time. So this level of granularity, again, it really helps for someone like me to see where am I doing things really well in comparison to my peers, in comparison to myself? How do I go on to step up? And of course, as a class lead, I think this information is critical for us to be able to step up. Typically using, again, the basic analyzing tool, which is what it defaults to for any of these fights, to be able to compare, again, myself to those within my class. The rankings, again, give that snapshot of time. And for all of these, again, I can look at, what is, for example, the damage that we are doing to Razor Gore, or if someone is taking way too damage for a specific fight, what the heck is killing them? What's taking out our tanks? Who's going on to have our threat issues, right? This is typically not a big issue for us, but just want to say that all of this is super, super helpful. I think parsing is immensely valuable and should be used consistently to help you grow if you have any interest in all of stepping up your game. This is really the place to do it, to, of course, talk with your peers within the guild. We all want to help each other, but this is really where you can go for a lot of that granularity and help yourself grow. So thanks.